the show that does kickstart off your day each and every morning. And like I did just hint earlier on, we'll be speaking matters economics today. Of course, you look at Uganda's economic status at the moment with the rising fuel prices, with of course the rising prices of different commodities on the market, and also in relation to what the U.S. government did just decide that effective 1st of January 2024, Uganda will of course cease to be part of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and that is a goal that of course did allow Uganda be able to get markets in the U.S. Of course, this was alongside other different African countries that will of course cease to be part of these benefits, and of course to discuss all this and make sense of matters economics and the impact. In studio, I'm joined by, I would say, one of the biggest and clearest economists when it comes to discussing and, of course, getting the deeper insights of matters economics. Mr. Pascal Muhangi, a very lovely good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, Pascal Muhangi managed to, be a lecturer of economics at the Makerere University Business School, and of course, he also happens to be part of CS Bank. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. Of course, to dive into the discussion just at the moment, Mr. Pascal Muhangi, at the moment, what is Uganda's economic status?
Very big question, economic status. I would say Uganda is doing well. The country is projected to grow at 5.6% this year, which is an improvement from last year. Last year we were growing at 4.5%. And when you look at the budget speech and the projections from Minister of Finance, we are projected to grow at 5.6%, which is good. Inflation is declining. You saw the statement from Bank of Uganda and the OBOS. Inflation has declined from 2.7% to 2.4%.
Okay.
So I think that is a good trajectory. You remember last year when we had the peak at 10%, inflation was at 10%, the CBR at 10%, but we keep stabilizing from these shocks that we had, the COVID shock, then the Ukraine war, and those where we had skyrocketing prices of fuel, when fuel almost reached 6,000. So the country is stabilizing, and we hope that in the medium term, we are going to achieve most of the goals that the country tends to achieve, like managing public debt, because these key things, inflation and then economic growth, they are key indicators of the economy's strength.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you say that, the economy is becoming stable, of course, I would not understand you, or even the person that is watching does not understand. How is the economy, becoming better and growing if the prices of fuel are still almost reaching 6,000?
Fuel is... Uganda's economics is disturbed basically by fuel and food prices. Okay. Those are the drivers of inflation. And the increase in fuel prices cannot be controlled here because we import all the fuel we use here. And what happens elsewhere in the global market for fuel has to have an impact in Uganda. So those prices, we import fuel that is already expensive, and that's why you see fuel prices here in the country are going up. And it is a risk because when you have fuel prices increasing, then it's going to have a ripple effect on different other sectors, especially food. Normally, fuel prices always affect the prices of food because where food is consumed, it is not grown there. We don't grow food in Kampala. But Kampala is the biggest consumer of food. Food is grown elsewhere and transported using fuel at Kampala. So when you have a hike in the fuel prices, then you're going to have a ripple effect on different other segments of the economy, which I think is a problem that government should look into. Okay.
Yeah. But of course, we'll be coming back to matters, fuel matters, inflation that you're saying the Bank of Uganda did say it did reduce. But of course, matters of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, that is AGOA.
Yes.
Uganda being put out of the beneficiaries as effective 1st of January 2024, what is the impact of this?
AGOA gives free access to, it gives select African countries free access to U.S. market. They don't pay duties, and it gives access to about 1,500 products. And that is a market that is very big. For Uganda's case, some of the products that we take to U.S. is coffee, cocoa, metal beams, and you know, coffee is the second biggest export for Uganda after gold. So when the U.S. comes and says we are no longer part of AGOA, the exports for Uganda to USA were about $200 million in 2021. When I checked last month, we exported products worth of $7.9 million. That is just in 1 month. So when the U.S. closes that market, that is what we are losing. Okay. Yeah, the people that are exporting coffee, all those products, in terms of FDI, that is what we are losing. But also, it sends a signal to other investors that would want to come and invest in Uganda. If the U.S. is not willing to work with Uganda, it sends a bad signal to other investors across the world, because the U.S. is a very big economy. It influences what where investors invest. If you don't have a good relationship with Uganda, it makes the Ugandan trade, it gives a very bad picture to the investors, which may affect FDI or foreign direct investment in Uganda.
But you see, before you even go to all this, has Uganda been benefiting from AGOA?
Like I've just said, just last month we exported products worth $7.9 million. In 2021, we exported products worth $200 million. That is a lot of money for the country in terms of foreign exchange earnings. So we have been benefiting, yes.
Okay. Yes. And of course, you see when we speak matters AGOA and all that, looking at the projection of, what will be happening, what amount of money does Uganda risk to be losing?
The amount of money Uganda risks to be losing is actually much more than the trade between the USA and Uganda. As I said, once you cut off this relationship, you risk losing money that have been trading directly, but also it sends a bad signal. You may lose money that was coming in as FDI. Other investors, you saw about 2 weeks ago, the USA gave an advisory about for their people and business community on the risk involved in investing in Uganda. They said they suffer financial and reputational risk when you invest in Uganda. So such things, that small statement has a lot of impact on people that were planning to come and invest their money in Uganda. So that is a very big loss in terms of FDI, which we need, because it has an impact on economic growth. When you have money coming in, it stabilizes the economy, because you have foreign exchange coming into the country. Okay.
According to yesterday's speech, that is in regards to the Minister of ICT, who speaks for cabinet, he did say that they are trying to make different connections here and there with other different governments in that regard. Do we see these other connections coming in and patching up the gap?
Yes, that's very true. Uganda, when you look at the share of exports for Uganda, and Uganda mostly exports to East African community. Actually, again, last month, most of the exports went to East African community. That's about 34%, worth $233 million. So Uganda can capitalize on these other markets. If the USA decides that if January 1st comes and it is upheld that we are no longer partnering with USA in terms of trade, Uganda can look at other markets, including East Africa, but then the rest of Africa. We have other big economies in East Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt. You can go and open up those markets. Then you also expand on these markets that are already existing, like in the Middle East, Asia, where we are exporting a lot. When you compare what we have been exporting to USA vis-a-vis what we have been exporting to these other markets, for Americas is North and South America, where the USA is. We have been exporting 1.2%. That is last month, which is equivalent to 7.9 trillion. Compared to Asia, where we have been putting 20%, Middle East 22%, rest of Africa 7.6%, and then the European Union 2.5%. So you see, the American market has not been that big.
So what you're trying to say is that
we still don't want to lose that small market.
Okay. Yes. So can we do away without, can we do better without this American market as Uganda?
Once you're losing, there is no way you can do better without. The thing is, we are going to lose, but the impact or the size of what we are losing is not as big as...
not significant enough.
But you don't want to lose, even if it is 1%. In trade, you don't want to lose it. If we can maintain it, better. But if we lose it, then that's when you start looking at your options. Where else can I go and export my coffee? Where else can I take my cocoa? Where else can I take my metal beans? Okay. I think that should be the debate.
Okay. And
but also, starting today, there is the AGOA summit in South Africa. It's going to run for 5 days. And Uganda has an opportunity because there is a delegation from Ministry of Trade that is going today at South Africa to deliberate on issues concerning AGOA. I think that is a very big window for Uganda to sit down with these people and negotiate, talk person to person, and try to find a solution for this.
Do you see any solution in there? Because, looking at what they are fronting is, matters human rights, Uganda violating those rights, and of course, it has been said by either the government. This is in relation to passing of the anti-homosexuality, bill. But of course, that is a matter we leave to them to be able. Let us just keep on economics. Now, you did mention that Uganda has been exporting more to the East African community for this period, but we continue to see different trade barriers between these different East African countries, Kenya and Uganda. In Parliament just this week on Tuesday, there was a bill that was being fronted by government to be able to hinder or even stop. That is the trade of fuel between Uganda and Kenya. How is the situation or the relationship looking like in the East African community?
East African community, we're supposed to be having a seamless trade where we don't have barriers because we have all these protocols we have signed. The Common Market Protocol, the Customs Union, and we should not be seeing this, but we have seen Kenya banning Uganda's maize, milk, eggs, whatever. Uganda has also on their side been putting some barriers, but I think Kenya has been very aggressive when it comes to this. So when you see Uganda trying to respond, sometimes they are responding to some of these things that Kenya has been putting in place. But I think that is a role of the East African community. These ministries in different countries need to come and sit and negotiate again, agree on the terms of engagement for this trade. But in terms of relationship, I think it is okay. Those small pockets of fights that we see, of course they have an impact, but when you actually look at the bigger picture, there is a lot of trade within East Africa. Uganda exports 34% of its products
to East Africa.
East Africa. That is according to last month's report from Ministry of Finance.
Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, in there, of course, still speaking matters are going, wrapping them up to be able to look into other economic, aspects of Uganda. Do you see any other countries or any other areas that Uganda can be able to explore and start exporting their products to be able to avert this?
I saw Uganda was trying to open up the Nigerian market. And Nigeria is a very big economy. It is almost 10 times bigger than Uganda's economy in terms of GDP. Yeah. It has a very huge population, and population is market. So those are some of the markets we can try to open up and increase. Then there are these other engagements that Uganda is now moving towards China. And it is happening for many countries. They are moving on from the West to Asia, China and Russia. So maybe we can also try to engage China and see if we can actually have such arrangements where you have free access to the market in China. Yeah.
Okay. Well, of course. Is there any other thing that Uganda can do to be able to avert the effect of losing out on the benefits of AGOA?
Negotiation. I can have a bilateral negotiation, and of course you have to make concessions. But you need to look at what you're losing vis-a-vis the concessions you're making. If you see the concessions are worse off because losing the market, me, I don't like, I don't want Uganda to lose the market of the USA because it also has other implications, not necessarily the market. It is not about the $7.9 million we earned last month. It has other implications on the economy, especially on FDI. Because we have very many investors coming from the USA coming to invest in Uganda. So we want to maintain that relationship between the two countries so that that FDI keeps flowing in. But there are also other projects that could be affected if these relationships keep straining. There is a lot of engagement between USA and Uganda. You said alone, Uganda received close to $1 billion in aid last year. Close to $1 billion last financial year. And you said this money comes to different projects, different non-government organizations, and that is money that is coming into the country. So once we keep scrapping off one by one, then we shall end up in the long run losing a lot of money from a strained relationship between Uganda and the USA. Because,
you know, why I ask this is, you know, you see already that Uganda is losing out on the help coming in from the World Bank. Of course, there are other projects that, you know, Uganda, the AFCAD project, Uganda, is, you know, in regards to US saying that, you know, that will also be halted and all these. You know, this whole impact, how do we tackle it? And of course, how does it affect the ordinary person?
It affects the, actually, it mostly affects the ordinary person. When from the World Bank freeze of funding to the paper that the US president talked about, the US advisory, now this, all that impacts trade, but then these interventions that directly affect the person. Something like paper, that is the intervention of the American president on AIDS. They fund AIDS intervention in the country. Now, if you remove that funding, then you're directly touching healthcare. And that is healthcare that is directly affecting people's welfare, people that are benefiting from these services that are coming under PEPFAR. If it is removed, like how the US president had slated in May, then you're directly impacting people's welfare. When you stop, because it is the US that initiated this World Bank freeze. When you freeze funding for Uganda, then you're going to have limited funding for key interventions of government. You're going to see a decline in funding for agriculture, funding for education, funding for health. Those are the sectors that directly impact people's welfare. And for any government in the world, any activity they conduct, the end result is impacting the standard of living or the welfare of this very common person or the last man in the village.
And the funding that has been gotten from these, you know, I would say avenues, have they been utilized?
Yes, very much.
And would you say that at the moment, you know, because if we are saying that we are losing out on, you know, all these funds, and of course they will affect the ordinary person, have they been utilized to, you know, maybe the best way they should have? Because I think if they should have, then wouldn't be, you know, fearing or scared to suffer?
No, you see, until you lose something, you don't know its significance. You first have to lose it, then you know the significance. If you lost funding for HIV interventions in Uganda, actually, the HIV interventions in Uganda are funded by donors almost to the tune of 70%. Now just cut off that money and you'll see the impact. You'll see people no longer access ARVs, these counseling services, because most of them are funded by donors. So now it looks like everything is normal, but once you lose them, is when you're going to see the impact. Right now, you cannot say, we have benefited a lot because everything is normal.
So at the moment, you know, as an economist, would you, what time would you project that Uganda will be facing the impacts of all these, you know, happenings?
These things can still be negotiated. The recent one, the Ogoa thing, they said 1st January. We still have 2 months to negotiate with the USA. The they have not put into action, but that shows you their direction. The advisory they gave, that one of course has an impact because you don't know how many people changed their decision not to invest in Uganda. The World Bank freezing of new funding for Uganda will have impact on projects that were not yet approved. So we're going to see in the next financial year, the new project that we had anticipated to get money from World Bank, those are going to be affected. And we shall see either government trying to borrow so much to fill the gap or maybe cutting the budget.
Okay.
Yes.
So of course we should give it about a period of 2, or 1 financial year,
Yes.
able to face the impact of,
Yes.
all this happening. Now, you did mention borrowing in there. How are we doing at the moment in regards to borrowing?
Actually, the debt is increasing. As of now, it is 88 trillion. Uganda's GDP is about 180 trillion. That is almost half your GDP. So the debt is increasing, and domestic borrowing, according to the Deputy Governor Bank of Uganda, is saying domestic borrowing is increasing, which may actually increase interest rates and crowd out the private sector. On the other side, there are strategies by government to cut on domestic borrowing, manage debt, but the reality is not reflecting the strategies. And these are proposals that we see in the budget speeches or what ministers are talking about. The debt is still rising. Yeah.
So is there, these interventions that are being proposed, how can we be able to better them up to see to it that at least there is a bit? Because with this, we are heading to, of course, speaking about inflation. So, how can we be able to beef up these solutions and make them strong enough?
I think our problem comes from the expenditure side. We have good interventions. We come up with good plans. We are not going to borrow this much. We are going to spend this much. But when it comes to implementation, we have a lot of reckless spending. You see someone going for UN meeting with 70 people, spending 2 billion. That is taxpayers' money, or maybe that could have been borrowed money that could be used to invest in something else. You see all these ministers on the road, everyone has over 5 cars, each with about 10 soldiers. All those cars are being fueled by government, they are being fueled, they are being serviced by government, they are being bought by government. So we need to cut on our expenditure. We have about 500 MPs in parliament. For what reason? If we can reduce those MPs maybe 250, that is also too much, but maybe let us give them 250. Or maybe 300. Do you know how much money we're going to save?
Should we rather point our, our guns to fight the habit of, misuse of money to, of course, fighting corruption? Because just this week, we did see, one of, the big shots was, of course, found in a controversy of bribing 100 million Ghana shillings to be able to keep in his office. And, of course, the IGG's office says they lack evidence to prosecute the case. What do you make of, this situation vis-a-vis what is happening?
Corruption is still a very big threat in Uganda. Actually, it also comes back to this AGOA thing, because you saw part of the reasons was because Uganda does not follow human rights, very corrupt, there is no rule of law. So when you have such instances coming up, people are openly stealing money, not being held accountable, then you're sending a signal. You're sending a signal to the outside world. There's what we call competitiveness in economics. Competitiveness is how you are able to grow your economy to impact well-being. And one of the indicators of competitiveness is the level of corruption. Now, Uganda ranks among the last countries, I think among the last 25 countries, most corrupt countries. So you see, when you have corruption...
That is last from the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, if I may get the exact figure, I had written it somewhere. It is, I think, 160 out of 180 countries.
Wow.
The 180 is the most corrupt. The first one is the least corrupt. And Uganda is among the last 20.
Is 168. So that means, Uganda would be among the top 20, or,
the top 20 most corrupt
countries in the world.
Yes.
Wow. And of course,
that is according to Transparency International. Yes.
And what does this, mean for us as a nation? Have we failed at, our jobs as Ugandans?
Public finance management in Uganda is still a very big issue. There is a lot of corruption, and what makes it even more dangerous is that there is no willingness to fight it. Politically, people are charged, or maybe they are chosen by parliament, a report from parliament, someone takes action, then someone from the top comes and removes the action. You saw what happened to the story of that PSST, was it trade? Sorry.
That is, Geraldine Sari.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was in a scandal. Parliament advised that she's put aside for some time. PSST takes action. A few months later, the president comes and directs. Now, that sends a signal to other people. It shows, why don't you wait for the due process to happen? And if she's okay, then the rule of law, the courts will determine if she's okay, then she will be reinstated. Wow. But when you come and interject and reinstate her, now you give them the authority to do whatever they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we now, of course, speak to some of the other pertinent issues that do concern the ordinary Ugandan. Why are the food prices in the country at the moment on a rise?
It could be part of fuel problem. I told you, food and fuel, they move in the same direction. Whenever you see fuel increasing in price, because this food that we consume in Kampala is not grown in Kampala. It is grown in Mbarara, Isinjiro, Soroti, all over Uganda and brought to Kampala. And it doesn't come walking. It comes on trucks. Those trucks consume fuel. So in most cases, our Uganda's inflation comes from fuel, and fuel influences the food prices. Then their thing is when the climate conditions in the country. Whenever we have a bumper in harvest, the prices are lower. When you don't have enough harvest, in terms, especially when they are dry seasons, you're going to see prices going up. And it's because we basically depend on nature. That's why you see prices keep fluctuating.
Okay. During
the dry season, food lowers, prices go up. During the wet seasons, there is a bumper harvest, you'll see prices going down.
Okay. Yes. And how is Uganda's projected oil production set out to be able to shape the economic growth and how matters economics do run in the nation? 2025,
it is expected we're going to have first oil. It is going to, when you look at the projections from Minister of Finance, the plans, they actually capture the first oil of 2025 to have an impact on very many things, including economic growth.
Or they are trying to cover us?
That's what I cannot determine, my friend. I cannot say if it is possible or not.
Because we expect that, yes.
It has been, over time they have been postponing it, first oil. But maybe let us hope that this time.
And we're already seeing a little bit of some extensions, because just last week, the Minister of Energy, Warren, the floor of Parliament, did mention there is a change in the dates that will be, seeing this happen. So, speak to us. Let us know. Should we bank on this oil project or not?
We should.
And why is that?
Because we're really having investments into the oil sector. Actually, even before we get to the first oil, there is a lot of money coming into the country in terms of investments, a lot of employment coming through the pipeline construction, through the development of the sites. So already we are achieving from it. There are businesses that have already achieved or benefited from these projects. Now, when the first oil comes in, let's say 2025, it is going to start bringing in money directed to the country, and that is going to help the country overcome some of the things like public debt, because we are going to have an alternative source of income. Instead of borrowing, we can actually use our income from oil to finance our budget. So we are going to see, we are likely to see a lot of improvement in terms of public debt, economic growth, investments, in infrastructure, all these things that government has been trying to do, but they are limited because of access to funds. Maybe when oil comes, that's when we are going to achieve some of these interventions.
With this matter of corruption we just mentioned just a few seconds back, do we see Uganda overcoming public debt with the high levels of corruption in the country? With vis-a-vis this oil project?
We have a lot of faith in the oil project because oil brings in a lot of money.
That even if
after some stealing a few, Some people remain with some to benefit the common person in the country because it brings in a lot of money. Yes.
Okay.
Of course, corruption is there and it is a big issue. We also don't want it to become, you know, some countries that have gotten natural sources, there's what we call natural source gas. And it is one of the risks that we could face, that you get natural sources, instead of helping you develop, they actually make you even worse. Why?
Because
there's insecurity. Everyone would want to maybe become leader. You have civil unrest. You have maybe civils. Those are things that we should not have. You see what is happening in Congo.
Yeah.
Congo's situation is because of the wealth they have. If they stopped having, Congo will stabilize. So we don't want to have such a scenario.
In Uganda.
Yes.
Wow. Of course, it is about quite a number of years now with Uganda not having, you know, the governor of the Bank of Uganda. Now, with all this, of course, it continues to create a worry in the public. How is this affecting the way economics are playing out in the nation? And, of course, speak to this in relation to the just released figures of inflation in the country. You said it did shift from 2.7 to 2.4.
Yes.
How is that realistic when we are seeing prices of commodities continuously rising? Because the person watching wants to understand how that is explained.
That is a question. There are two questions I normally face: economic growth and inflation. People say we are growing, but our pockets are shrinking.
Definitely.
Inflation is declining, the prices are going up. Now, the case of inflation, it is annual inflation. These prices are compared to last year. When they say inflation in October 2023, they are comparing to October 2022.
Wow, so this is the levels for this month
Yes,
of October.
yes. You compare October 2023 to October 2022. That's what is called annual headline inflation.
But then how about if you to, you know, project it on, I would say maybe from January to up until now, November 2nd, how is the inflation?
Still, it has been declining. The trajectory for inflation has been declining.
Okay.
Yes. And previously, fuel prices have been declining. And you also agree that food prices have also been declining, especially for sure.
Yes.
Yes. It may have started going up because of fuel, but previously, these prices have been declining. So that's why we see the inflation declining, because Uganda's inflation, I told you, comes from majorly two things: food and fuel. When there is no food, you're going to see inflation. When fuel prices increase, it's going to cause inflation.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Of course, that is in regards to what is currently happening in matters inflation. We're trying to make sense of the different economic situations that we do have in the nation, because at the moment, as I speak, at different fuel pumps, that is around Kampala, fuel does, that is petrol, does go up to around 5,700 Uganda shillings, with of course, you know, diesel being in 5,300. So of course, that shows you that since this continuously or constantly is increasing, then there could be an impact as we head to the festivities. But of course, speaking about, you know, the impact of the current situation of the economy in regards to the festivities, what should we be expecting?
Coming to we are going to have a lot of economic activity. People are going to, the trade is going to increase. And you know that during festivities, the fares for transport always increase.
Yeah.
Now, if they are going to be compounded by an increase in fuel prices, people that are expecting to travel around December should expect to pay a lot of money if fuel prices don't improve. Because over time we have seen around December fares for transport almost double. Now, if we are compounding this problem by an increase in fuel prices, then around December we're going to see a lot of, especially public transport, a lot of rise or a significant increase in the fares in public transport.
Okay.
Then also trade, it is going to be affected, because whenever you have trade, whenever I have fuel prices increasing, it affects trade. There is a lot of transportation of food around December because people are trying to bring food
to
to
sell.
sell. Yeah. So we are likely to see an increase in the prices of food because of transport costs that result from an increase in fuel prices.
Okay.
If it does not come down, and it is very hard to control, because this is more of like imported inflation. You import fuel that is already expensive into the country. So at a country level, it is almost impossible to control the prices for fuel. Yes.
Now, you know, with all these economics you're speaking,
yeah.
the person that is out there deep down, would you say, have Ugandans been given enough economic knowledge to be able to, you know, live properly in the nation?
What do you mean economic knowledge?
You know, because when we speak to, you know, how if you've been given money, we've seen these different government projects, or even let me just, you know, rephrase it. How is the government doing in terms of, you know, availing economic solutions to the public?
Okay, actually, I would combine your questions and answer. Have Ugandans been given economic knowledge? I would say, have Ugandans been maybe sensitized on how to handle certain things? A good example is PDM. Government is spending about 1.1 trillion on PDM this financial year.
Yeah.
And each parish is getting 100 million.
And it did spend 1 trillion last year.
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
Okay.
Each parish getting about 100 million. Now, you're giving money, sending money to the villages, but you're not investing much in the sensitization part, because these people are not business people. And you expect them to use this money to produce. For you to produce, you must have some entrepreneurial skills. Government should be doing two things. On top of promoting the financial inclusion pillar, that is the pillar where PDM has so many pillars. And
about 7 or so.
Yeah, and the one that is being fronted is the financial inclusion pillar, where we are giving money to the communities. There is another pillar called mindset change, which I think has been neglected. Actually, its budget has been cut by more than 50%, from 70 to 30 billion in this current financial year. So I think your question of whether Ugandans have been given enough economics, I think that's where we go wrong.
Now, you see, this 70 to 30,
yes.
that is billions.
Yes.
The person there is wondering, how is this money utilized? Is it going to the communities and teaching people? You know, how is it utilized?
It is it is more of sensitization, education. Before you give this person 1 million, how best can they utilize it? Where can they access the best agro inputs? Where can they access the markets? After producing, where can this person access the markets? That is sensitization. But you just go and give this person 1 million, they don't know where to sell, they don't know where to buy inputs, they don't know which inputs to use. You have just given them the money to just consume.
Now, at the moment,
yes.
would you say this project is a success or not?
It is too early to judge PDM because we haven't started seeing the output. But I would say, for any project that sends money to the grassroots person, is a good project.
Okay.
Because it removes these barriers where money is being stolen at central government level, money goes directly to the parish. At least that one is going to improve the welfare of people at the grassroots. Now, whether that money is being used for the activities they are supposed to be used is another story. But at least money is going to the grassroots.
And is it reaching the people down there? Because in there, I would like you to also give us some of you know, the best ways that the government can employ to be able to see this project becoming a success.
Actually, money goes directly to the circles. In every community, people form circles. Those circles are registered and put on IFMIS. That is the system they use to pay. And money is paid directly to the circles. So money actually reaches the people. Because there is no these intermediaries. Money is paid from Bank of Uganda directly to the circles. Yeah. So money reaches.
Because, you know, there is a question, or there is a point of different blockers, and we are seeing reports. We've also found reports where people, you know, instead of receiving 1 million, they are receiving 600 or even 300. You know, can that even be able to...
I think that's why sensitization comes in. These people should be sensitized. Don't accept 300. And there is also people...
But you see, don't accept, but Ugandans are so poor to the extent that even if you said I will give you 50,000, they will take it.
And you're aware that this is a revolving fund. This is a loan.
Yes.
So if you're supposed to receive 1 million as a loan and you receive 300, how will you pay back the 1 million?
Maybe there is no, there are no plans of this for paying back the money.
No. It is a revolving fund.
Because why I'm saying this, we've seen different other government projects that do relate to the likes of the PDM.
And livelihood
yes,
fund.
we've seen how they've gone. The people take the money, they don't pay back the money. Is it a handout at the end of the day?
It's not a handout, but it's being fronted like a handout. Okay. And that is another weakness of PDM. When you talk to people, they say, this is a gift from government. Government at what day? That mindset is what needs to be changed. That you receive money to invest, it is a revolving fund, you're supposed to pay it back, but you look at it as a handout from government.
And what do we risk to lose if the government does not, get all these factors in check?
PDM may not achieve its objectives. PDM was supposed to transform about 39% of Ugandans into the money economy. Those that are not part of the money economy, they're in subsistence production, it was supposed to transform them from subsistence production to the money economy. So if you have those difficulties in implementation, then you're likely not to achieve those objectives of PDM.
Okay.
Yes.
And the government, do we lose money,
Yeah, that is taxpayers' money. That money that is being invested in PDM is the money you pay and pay as you earn. Every time you buy fuel, you pay taxes, that is the money.
Oh, okay.
So that is our money, yes.
Well, of course, that is, what we are trying to, make sense of. That is for the people that continue to receive the parish development model funds. Is this fund even reaching you deep down in the community? Are you even, having the better plans to be able to utilize this money so that you can be able to lift, yourself from, I would say, poverty and, all those things in there. So, of course, we do head to the final minutes of today's show. Speaking some of the economic solutions that Uganda does need as a country in a whole, what would you say from the economics perspective?
We need to control our expenditures, fiscal consolidation, where we reduce the expenditure, but also fiscal consolidation includes reducing expenditure when they start growing revenues. And this is things that government is talking about, but they are not implementing well. Talk about fiscal consolidation, but you're still having a lot of expenditure. You talk about revenue mobilization, but the interventions you're using like IRAS is integrated revenue administration system that is being implemented at local government levels is not being implemented across the country. It is about 60% rollout as of now. Then we need to manage our debt well, because you don't want to descend into a debt distress. You need to make sure, on top of fiscal consolidation, make sure you control corruption. These pockets of corruption we are seeing, we use a lot of money in irregularities. Then we ensure we have efficient implementation of projects. That is another area where we lose money. You have a project, you have overruns, the cost of a project almost doubles because you are not efficiently managing your projects.
Well, of course, maybe for a person, for the benefit of the viewer, we did mention a little bit of public debt that are increasing in that regard, and would like to, get this straight again. What happens if the country or the government continues to borrow, that is in the nation, with of course now the different external forces saying, you know what, we are halting the funds?
Every time you increase domestic borrowing, you're competing with the private sector. And what happens when government goes into these commercial banks to borrow? If I went to commercial bank to borrow and I'm competing with government, automatically I will not get the loan. The money will be given to the government because there is no risk on the government. Government cannot default it. The risk on the government defaulting is very small. So you're competing with private sector, you crowd out a private sector, which increases the interest rates on loans. And that increases the cost of doing business in the country.
That is pushing out the different, private investors.
Pushing out private investors from access to credit. So government shouldn't be, actually, when you look at the budget, government had planned to reduce domestic borrowing from 5 trillion to 3 trillion. But from what the Deputy Governor said, there is still an increase in domestic borrowing, which I think should be checked.
So government did not follow what they had planned to follow?
That target will be, we shall evaluate if it has been achieved or not at the end of the financial year.
Because, you know, at the moment it is increasing. It could
increasing.
It could have even exceeded the 5 trillion as we speak at the moment.
It can't reach there by now because we are just in the second quarter.
Wow. Okay. Then, of course, speaking to the different laws that are being passed by, Parliament being proposed to be passed, there is an issue of money lenders. How is Uganda dealing with this problem?
It comes back to access to credit, because why do people go to money lenders? Money lenders will charge you 25%, 30%. In the commercial banks, it's about 18-20%. But the reason people go to money lenders is because they have failed to access credit in these mainstream banking systems. And
why is that? Is it a process of bureaucracy or?
It is a process of bureaucracy. The requirements, the collateral required by these commercial banks, most people don't have. People want quick loans. You can go and access tomorrow in a bank to take a month. Someone wants money and they want it tomorrow, so they end up going to money lenders. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say?
But I think they should be regulated also, because giving out loans at 30%, there is no business that can return 30%. There are very few. So you're giving this person a loan of 30%. That means that the rate of return for the business must be more than 30%. But how many businesses can return more than 30%?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So you got what you're saying is that Ugandans do get a rope and tie it on their own necks when they know what they are going into.
You're going to invest. You know your business cannot return. You cannot have a return on investment of more than maybe 15%. But your investment, the loan interest is 25%. Basically, you cannot pay back that loan.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Very many thanks, Mr. Pascal Muhangi. Are there any other, would say, maybe parting shots that you'd love to leave the public with?
I would encourage the general public. We are in charge of the country to monitor service delivery. In your community, if you see something is not happening well, there are so many platforms that you can use. There's a platform by Office of the Auditor General, the Citizens Feedback platform. You just go and log in, take a picture and upload, give a description, and those things can be, would be addressed. So we can monitor our service delivery and make sure that we are part of our growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Very many thanks, Mr. Pascal Muhangi, for giving us those insights, and of course for making time to have this discussion today morning. And of course we appreciate it. Hopefully next time we have an economics situation, you'll be able to come and delve into that and give us the deeper insights. But of course that is what we managed to prepare for you today morning. That is here on the Daybreak, as we did try to make sense of some of the different economic situations that we do have in Uganda at the moment, and hopefully you did pick some of those, and of course picking some of the solutions that you can implement, because according to Pascal Muhangi, he says if we can be able to reduce on our expenditure as a nation, of course that goes back to you, the ordinary Ugandan. If you can reduce your expenditure, spend the money that at least spend according to what you do bring in, not spending more than what you do earn. My name is Bruce Mugabe. This is the Daybreak. Have yourselves a good morning.